What happens when you die? There are many uncertainties in life, but death is not one of them. It's coming for all of us, but if you know more about it, maybe it would be easier to think about. So let's find out the situation 6 feet under in the latest episode of Big Factz. What happens when you die? Subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications button below. First things first, the body becomes cold and stiff, but we all know that from binging crime shows, right? The skin becomes purplish gray, signs that early stages of decomposition were well underway. Now, to be honest, far from being dead, a rotting corpse is teeming with life. In fact, scientists view a rotting corpse as a vast and complex ecosystem. Decomposition begins several minutes after death with a process called autolysis, or more commonly, self-digestion. Soon after the heart stops beating, cells become deprived of oxygen and acidity increases because of the chemical reactions inside. Enzymes, the little things that break us down, leak out cells. This usually begins in the liver, which is rich in enzymes, and in the brain. Eventually, though, all other tissues and organs begin to break down. Damaged blood cells spill out and discolor skin. Of course, the body temperature drops steeply until it becomes the same as its surroundings. Then, rigor mortis, the stiffness of death. Eyes, the jaw and neck muscles stiffen in the start, but soon enough, the torso and limbs fall victim to it as well. But why? After death, the cells are devoid of their energy source, and the protein particles that move muscles are locked in place. At this point, mostly bacteria lives on the corpse. Our body actually has a huge number of bacteria. Every one of the body's surfaces and corners provides a habitat for a bacterial community. But mostly, these tiny things live in our gut. If we know little about the environment in a living body, we know even less about it in a corpse. Still, most internal organs are free from microbes when we are alive. That's because our immune system guards every single tissue. After death, the immune system starts working, so the bacteria moves freely into the organs. If you somehow want to see a decomposition in action, go down to Texas, not just because everyone there is a killer, but because it's Huntsville. There is a research facility that has placed 2 fresh cadavers in sunlight to observe natural decomposition. At this point, one body's loose and gray-blue skin is intact, but its gut muscles have decomposed and ribs are visible. A few meters away lies another fully skeletonized with its black, hardened skin. Once self-digestion is underway and bacteria has started to escape from the gut, a process called putrefaction begins. This is also called the molecular death, and it is essentially the breakdown of soft tissues even further into gas, liquids, and salts. It is already underway at the early stages, but ramps up its speed when anaerobic bacteria comes to play. Anaerobic bacteria are the ones that work without oxygen and feed on the body's tissues, fermenting the sugars in them to produce gases such as methane and ammonia. This causes bloating as well as the rancid corpse smell. How do we know it smells? Cop shows, of course. This also causes further discoloration of the body. The skin turns green-black. But bloating is often used as a marker for the transition between early and later stages of decomposition. Once putrefaction has occurred, a decomposing body becomes exposed to its surroundings. At this stage, those microbe colonies really start to flourish. 2 species closely linked to decomposition are blowflies and flesh flies. Cadavers give off a foul, sickly sweet smell that blowflies detect the smell, then land on the cadaver and lay their eggs. Each fly deposits around 250 eggs in the first 24 hours that gives rise to small maggots. They feed and become large ones that wiggle away. The presence of flies is what really cooks the body's goose. It attracts predators such as skin beetles, wasps, and spiders, which then feed on the fly eggs. If that wasn't bad enough, vultures may also descend upon the body. So every dead body has a unique environment around it, and this may change according to the body's condition. Studying this very peculiar science may enable us to figure out more about how and when the dead body actually died. For example, detecting DNA sequences known to be unique to a particular soil type in a cadaver could help crime scene investigators link the body of a murder victim to a particular geographical location. This would probably cause lesser serial killers. Now, in a weird plot twist, you will understand that humans don't just destruct this planet, but can be beneficial to it as well. through a process called purging, which is basically liquid seeping out of the decomposing body into the soil. If you sent out drones to detect which fields would be the best to plant seeds in, they would mark whenever a dead body remains. A decomposing body significantly changes the chemistry of the soil beneath it, causing effects that may persist for years. Purging releases nutrients into the underlying soil, and a maggot migration transfers much of the energy in a body to the surrounding environment. According to one very popular estimate, an average body consists of 75% water. Plus, every kilogram of dry body mass eventually releases nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium into the soil. If we got a more detailed understanding of these releases, then we would help forensic researchers estimate how long a body was placed in a very old grave. Back to our buddies who watch dead bodies rot for a living. The relentless and dry heat of Texas will cause the body to actually mummify rather than fully decompose. The skin quickly loses all of its water content so that it remains clinging to the bones and doesn't fall off when the decomposition is underway. The speed of the chemical reactions involved doubles with every 10 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, so the dead body will reach the advanced stage very quickly, possibly after just 16 days. By then, most of the flesh is stripped away, and the mass migration of maggots has begun. And how could we forget Egyptians every time we talk about mummies? The ancient Egyptians learned how the environment affects decomposition. Before they built tombs called pyramids, they would remain fascinated. They used to simply wrap their dead in linen and buried them in sand. The heat stopped microbial activity, and the linen prevented maggots from eating. This kept the body preserved. They wanted to go a step further and made elaborate tombs, which had the opposite effect. When the bodies were removed from heat, microbes started to work, so embalming was created. Embalming involves treating the body with chemicals that slow down the decomposition process. Here's the process if you want to do it. Wash the body of the deceased with palm wine and Nile water. Remove most internal organs through an incision made on the left side and fill the void with natron, a salt found in the Nile Valley. Use a long hook to pull the brain out through the nostrils and then cover the body with natron and leave it alone for 40 days. In Egypt, initially the dried organs were placed in jars that were buried alongside the body. Later, they were wrapped in linen and returned to the body. Finally, the body itself was wrapped in multiple layers of linen in preparation for burial. Morticians study this process to this day, but their process is a little different. But why do people do this? They perform something similar so that loved ones can view the body as the person as it was. Especially for victims of trauma and violent death, this can involve extreme facial reconstruction. Here's a scenario of a mortician at work. The mortician transfers John to the prep table, removes his clothes, and positions him. Then takes several small bottles of embalming fluid from a wall cupboard. The fluid contains a mixture of solvents. This would temporarily preserve the body's tissue. How come? Well, the embalming fluid actually links proteins to others and fixes them in place, and also kills bacteria to prevent them from coming into the bloodstream. So the bacteria cannot break down proteins. The mortician would actually pour the embalming fluid into the embalming machine. The fluid comes in a variety of different colors to match the different skin tones. The body is then wiped with a sponge, and an incision is made just above the left collarbone. The mortician raises the very thin artery and vein in the neck, then ties them with strings. A thin tube is pushed into the artery, and the vein is opened up by a surgical pair of tweezers. Of course, this is a delicate process, so all the tools are surgical. Next, the embalming machine is switched on, which pumps the fluid into the body. As the fluid goes in, the blood pours out of the cut that was made initially. It flows alongside the table into a large sink. Also, this is done on purpose, as the blood has to be replaced by embalming fluid. Meanwhile, the body receives a massage to move along any blood clots that may stop embalming fluid from flowing. Once all the blood has been replaced, the mortician pushes an aspirator into John's abdomen and sucks the fluid out of the body cavity, together with any urine and feces that might still be in there. Finally, the incisions are sewn and the body is wiped down. The facial features are set. The body is dressed and set off for the funeral. It takes a lot of preparation just to die in peace, apparently. Actually, embalmed bodies do eventually decompose, but we do not know when or even how long it takes. Largely, it depends on how it was embalmed. what kind of casket was used, and how it was buried. Bodies are actually forms of energy wrapped in lumps of flesh so they can be released into the soil. According to the laws of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted from one form to another. In other words, things fall apart, converting their mass to energy while doing so. Decomposition is one final morbid reminder that all matter in the universe must follow these fundamental laws. The burial process breaks us down, making equal our bodily matter with its surroundings and recycling it so that other living things can put it to use. Does it still sound morbid when we put it that way? Comment down below and we'll pin the best one. Like this video and share it with everyone you know. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. This was Big Factz, bringing you the best content on the internet. See you next time.